Hi. Usually I start right on time, but I'm going to give people a couple minutes because of the technical difficulties. I logged on really early to try to iron out any kinks, and no matter what I did, it wouldn't work. The video quality was poor, and the sound wasn't working quite right either. So, and there was a long delay. But tonight we're going to cover the ACTFL guidelines and even the sublevels. So I think you'll find it very helpful because you have to know this for the lesson plan, because your lesson plan has to be appropriate for the ACTFL level. You also have to know it for the multiple choice questions. So it's very important. And just so you guys know, I am recording this. So if you don't want to be recorded, of course, turn off your video because I'm going to share this in the group file. But yeah, so this is on the pedagogy section, which is the biggest part of the test. And it's what I really focus on in my course in tutoring to get you ready. So the ACTFL guidelines are the proficiency levels of students. And there's lots of different levels. But on the test, you pretty much just need to know novice, intermediate, and advanced. There's also superior and distinguished. But I don't think that shows up on the test, so I don't cover that. It's good to go over the document in its entirety, but for the test purposes, I think all you need is novice, intermediate, advanced. So you have the different levels for speaking, writing, listening, reading, and this file is in my course, if you have my course. So you can pull it up and study it. It's in competency 2. So let's get started. For speaking, well, before I start, I want to say, if all you can remember is 3 things, you're in better shape than if you can't do anything at all. We want to learn the sublevels, but this is a good way to start. At the novice level, they should just know isolated words and phrases. At the intermediate level, sentences, and at the advanced level, paragraphs. But it does get more complicated than that. So at the novice low level for speaking, they have no functional ability to communicate. They might be able to say their name or greetings or something like that. At the novice mid-level, they can use isolated words and phrases. They may be understood with difficulty by native speakers accustomed to non-native speakers. So it'd have to be people used to language learners. And then we have novice high. Because this is a spectrum, right? Novice high is awfully close to intermediate low. So they can do some of the things intermediate low students could do. They can communicate about personal information, basic objects, preferences, and immediate needs. They're conjugating verbs. They're using the present tense, and they can generally be understood by native speakers accustomed to non-native speakers. And then we have intermediate low. It still has to be uncomplicated tasks that they're doing. So they can handle uncomplicated communicative tasks, concrete exchanges. They can generally be understood by sympathetic interlocutors. So people that are trying to understand them, right? That actually are wanting to make an effort, especially those used to non-native speakers. If you're just joining me, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but you haven't missed much. And I'll be posting this recording if it works in the files of my group. That way you can catch up on what you missed. But we're in the ACTFL Proficiency Guidelines, which are in the pedagogy section of the test. You have to know it for the multiple choice questions. You also have to know it for the lesson plan, right? So we did novice already for speaking. Now we're on intermediate, mid. So they're getting broader in what they can do. They can talk about prices, shopping, food, and travel. And they're generally understood by sympathetic native speakers that are used to non-native speakers, language learners. Then we have intermediate high. So notice now they can converse with ease and confidence in routine tasks, right? They can narrate in all time frames. When they say time frames, they're talking about tenses, but not all the time. So they're just starting to do that. They can sometimes use paragraph level discourse because that's an advanced skill, but they're at intermediate high. So sometimes they can do it. They can generally be understood by natives unaccustomed to non-natives. That's a big jump. Here they would have to be understood by those used to non-natives, and here unaccustomed. So intermediate high is a big jump from intermediate mid. And then we have advanced. They can communicate at the paragraph level. They can handle formal and informal tasks. They can narrate and describe in all tenses with some control of aspect. So remember I said intermediate high, they could just do it sometimes. They really can't do it all the time in advanced low either, but they're doing it with some control. And they can be understood by native speakers, unaccustomed non-native speakers. Then we get to advanced mid. They can narrate and describe in all timeframes with good control. And they can even talk about current events. So it's getting broader, the things they can talk about. So it goes from some control to good control. And notice here it says they're readily understood by native speakers, unaccustomed to non-native speakers. And then when we get to advanced high, they can discuss some topics abstractly, which is actually a superior level task. But because they're advanced high, they're almost there. They can consistently and accurately narrate and describe in all time frames. So it goes from some control, good control, to accurately and consistently doing it. So we've already done the speaking. The good thing is speaking and writing have a lot of similarities. I think you'll notice that there's a lot of overlap, basically, and that'll make it easy when you're memorizing. When we get to listening, it'll be different, but listening and reading are similar to each other. So I'll point that out as we go. So for writing, kind of like here, they have no functional ability. All they can do is copy things. That's it. So no functional ability to write in the target language. When they get to novice mid, they can reproduce from their memory a modest number of words and phrases, and they can fill out some information on simple documents. Their writing would be difficult to be understood even by those used to non-native writers, just like the speaking was at novice mid, right? It would be difficult. It may be understood. When we get to novice high, they're getting better, of course. They can write lists, short messages, postcards, simple notes. Sometimes they can make sentences because they're in novice high. So sometimes they can do this, which is an intermediate skill, writing a sentence. Their writing is often comprehensible to natives, accustomed to the writing of non-natives with comprehension gaps. So that's novice high. Next, we have intermediate low. They can meet some limited practical writing needs. They can combine learned vocabulary to make short sentences. They use the present tense, right? The topics they're talking about have to be predictable. They're still making mistakes, of course. Their writing is understood by natives accustomed to the writing of non-natives. So see how this is similar, right? They can generally be understood by sympathetic native speakers that are used to non-natives. Next, we get to intermediate mid. They can write about their preferences, routines, common events. They're writing in the present tense, but this is important. They may start to reference other time frames. Remember, for speaking, that happened at intermediate high. Here it's happening at intermediate mid, so it's a little bit different. They're just starting to use different time frames, conjugating in like the past tenses and the future tense. They can readily be understood by natives used to the writing of non-natives. And then when we get to intermediate high, they can narrate and describe in different tenses when writing about everyday topics. Sometimes the paragraph length, because these are intermediate and advanced skills that they're doing. So sometimes they can do them. Their writing is generally comprehensible to native speakers not used to the writing of non-natives, just like the speaking, but with comprehension gaps. Then we get to advanced. They can meet basic work and academic needs, can narrate and describe in major timeframes with some control. So they can conjugate in different tenses with some control, just like for speaking. Their writing is understood by natives not used to the writing of non-natives with some effort required. And then when we get to advanced mid, they can narrate and describe with detail in all major timeframes with good control, just like for speaking. Their writing is understood readily by natives not accustomed to the writing of non-natives, just like for speaking. So see these overlaps. And then in advanced high, they can write with precision and detail, can handle informal and formal topics, can narrate and describe in the major timeframes with solid control, and can handle some abstract topics, because that's the abstract, again, is superior level. So it goes to solid control, just like here, they can do it consistently and accurately. So we're over halfway done, even though this looks like half, because these are actually longer than these. Listening and reading don't take as long. So for listening, at novice low, they can occasionally recognize isolated words or phrases with virtually no comprehension, and they'd have to hear it more than once too. At novice mid, they can recognize and begin to understand high frequency words and phrases, especially cognates. So does everybody know what cognates are? Does anybody want to tell me what a cognate is? I bet y'all know, or some of you know. So cognates are words that look alike and have the same meaning. So hospital and hospital, right? Computadora, computer, they look similar and have the same meaning. So that helps, of course, at the novice level. If they're cognates, they can understand that. They can usually just understand one phrase at a time. At the novice high level, they can sometimes understand sentence-length speech, one utterance at a time, on personal and social topics with language support. So see, because it's at novice high, they're able to do sentence-length speech, understand it sometimes. And then we get to intermediate low, they can understand some information from sentence-length speech and basic personal and social topics. And then intermediate mid can understand simple sentence-length speech. Comprehension is most accurate with highly familiar topics. So even at the intermediate level, it still needs to be highly familiar topics. And then intermediate high can understand with ease and confidence sentence level discourse. So at the intermediate low, they can understand some. So they've grown a lot when they get to intermediate high with ease and confidence. And then at the advanced level, they can understand short narrative and descriptive text with a clear structure, understand main facts and some details. This is important. They can understand narrative and descriptive text with expanded descriptions of past, present, and future events. Look how late in the game they learn the different tenses. So for listening, it's not until we get to advanced mid that they can understand different tenses. That's a lot later than speaking and writing. For speaking, they were starting at intermediate high. And for writing, it was intermediate mid. So that's a big difference. Not until advanced mid. And then for advanced high, they can understand with ease and confidence narrative and descriptive text of any length, including summaries and reports, even on unfamiliar topics. So I would say when they get to this level, they have cognitive academic language proficiency, right? Because they can understand the advanced language about even unfamiliar things or less familiar things. So that's, we're done with the first three. So now we have reading. They can recognize a limited number of letters and characters and high frequency words and phrases. This is for novice low, right? Just only letters and characters and high frequency words. Novice mid, letters and symbols and words like cognates. So just like for listening, right? But not more than a single phrase. Rereading is often required. And then once we get to novice high, they can understand with ease keywords and cognates and phrases that are highly contextualized, even like things like train schedules. But it has to be short, non-complex text with basic information. And then we get to intermediate low. They can understand some information from simple connected text dealing with personal and social needs with misunderstandings. And then when we get to intermediate mid, can understand short, non-complex texts about basic information about familiar topics. So again, it says familiar topics, even at intermediate mid. And then intermediate high can understand fully and with ease short, non-complex text with basic information about personal and social topics with some gaps in comprehension. And then we get to advanced low. They can understand conventional narrative and descriptive text with clear structure. Texts have a high frequency vocabulary. They understand main ideas and some details. So even at advanced low, they're still reading things with high frequency vocabulary. At advanced low. Advanced mid, they can understand conventional narrative and descriptive text with expanded descriptions of people and places and narrations about past, present, and future tense, just like we learned about over here. So see how they're similar. Can understand main ideas, facts. Okay, so for listening and for reading, it's not until we get to advanced mid. And then advanced high can understand fully and with ease conventional narrative and descriptive text of any length, even more complex, even unfamiliar topics. So I know we covered a lot tonight, and it's kind of boring, I'll admit, but it's super important because on the lesson plan, a lot of people are getting zeros when they send me score reports asking me for help. They're getting zeros. And if you're getting a 0 on your lesson plan, it's for a couple of reasons. One is that you didn't hit the objective. Maybe you talked about the topic, the theme, but not the objective. The other thing is if your activities and assessment are not appropriate for the ACTFL level. So if you get an advanced lesson plan and you have them just writing phrases or maybe a simple sentence or something, that's inappropriate. They should be able to write at the paragraph level, as we talked about. Likewise, if you get a novice level 1, and I see this when people email me lesson plans, they'll get a novice lesson plan and they'll email me a lesson plan saying that the students will write a 5-paragraph essay, but novice students could never write an essay in the target language. It's not appropriate. So you do have to know this stuff for the lesson plan. And on the multiple choice questions, it will say something like, you know, maybe that Miss Gonzalez teaches Spanish 2, and her students can speak with some control of aspect in different time frames. What level of proficiency are they? Okay, and if you want to see more examples of some of the questions and how they word them, if you go, and if you're on Jamila's page, which I bet you are, because that's how most people find me, her group, I mean, then she mentions this a lot, and this is a great starting point. It's not really enough to study, but it's important to read over it. So if you go to this, scroll down and click on LOTE Spanish 613, there's some free questions in here, number 8. And it will have ACTFL in there. So like right here, here's one. According to the ACTFL Proficiency Guidelines 2012, which of the following reading tasks would best be assigned to novice high level learners? Okay. And then they give you the answer here too. So B would be correct, because they would need, at the novice level, they would still need those visual cues. Okay, so this is really helpful. And then after you study, I would recommend doing it after you study. This is worth it, the $10 test, to see how you do, and it'll tell you if you're in the green, yellow, or red zone. So this is a good way to see if you're ready. Any questions about this? Like, I know it was kind of boring, but thanks for bearing with me. Any questions about the ACTFL?
I have a question.
Yes.
What I think I remember seeing the word tense, which you said had to do with the
time frames?
like the time frame, and then there was another word, aspect. I don't know if I remember what aspect means.
That basically is how much control they have, with some control of aspect, meaning how much control they have over conjugating. I've never heard that word used in another context, but what I did was I pulled up that ACTFL document that's like 20 something pages, and I put it all in a chart and reworded it. So I'm not using their copyrighted material, but they do use that word, control of aspect. But it just means that they can conjugate in those different tenses with either some control, good control, or solid control. So some control is advanced low, good control, advanced mid, and then solid is advanced high. So yeah, that's and then if you need extra help with the LOTE, I do have a digital course and I have weekly tutoring, and we go over the pedagogy in detail. So the second language acquisition methods, experts like Stephen Krashen, Del Himes, Noam Chomsky, Lev Vygotsky, Michael Lewis, you have to know all of those. You have to know all of this stuff. You have to know the 5 C's, the different program models. So there's quite a bit to the pedagogy, but I love it because I think it's the easiest, fastest way to boost your score on the LOTE, because it takes a while to get better at a language, right? But you can memorize this stuff fairly quickly. But any other questions? That was a good one. No? All right. Well, unfortunately, I didn't gather everybody's email address because I was trying something new and it was a big flop. But if you have any questions or want to email me, I'm going to put my email in the chat box, info@texasteachertoday.com. And then my website is pretty easy to remember. It's lotespanish.us. So you can check out, I have some free resources on there and a blog, and have a YouTube channel, Texas Teacher Today, and there's some free videos on there too. So I'll be posting more stuff in my closed Facebook group, and so just keep an eye out. But thank you so much for attending. Anything else that I can do for y'all before you leave?
I have a question. This
Yes.
particular spreadsheet, is this something that you're willing to share with us, or is this something just you use like with your when you're tutoring?
It's
The way that you
available in
book
one of my courses you can buy if you don't want to sign up
Okay.
for the tutoring. It's included in my tutoring, but it's also in even in a mini course. So if you're not wanting to
Okay.
spend, like my regular course is $99, and that's really what you need, in my opinion, to be able to pass.
Okay. I was
but
going to
some
tell you if
people-
you can explain the difference between the different opportunities that you offer also. You said that there's-
Absolutely. Yeah. I try not to make it real salesy, but if you're asking, I would love
well,
to.
it's because I'm interested, so I'm sorry to
Yeah.
everyone, but
No, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled because that's how that's how I make a living. So I offer a course that you could access for 3 months, and it's $99. And it
Okay.
gets you ready for all domains: reading, writing, listening, speaking.
Okay.
For listening, it's not real strong, honestly. Like, I'm my own worst critic. I have some listening exercises, but it's mostly external stuff I recommend. But most people do pretty well on listening. It's really intense for pedagogy and for writing and speaking. You upload your own tasks for writing and speaking, and I give you feedback on how to improve. And then for reading, it's got a full-length practice test. So the only thing I think that you don't get a ton of practice on is listening, but it's got the external links you can practice, and it has some exercises. And then cultural understanding is one of the hardest things to study for, because we're talking about cultures of all of the Spanish-speaking countries, right? But most people do quite well on that. I get a lot of score reports, and people get 9 or 10 out of 12 correct on that.
All of this
So-
information, however, is included in the one course that's for 99 for 3 months, correct?
It is, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That's all included. And so that's your most economical way to get ready for the LOTE. But
Okay.
what happens is a lot of people enroll and life gets in the way, they don't get around to it. So people are usually more successful if they do my tutoring and course. And it's the same course, but we meet every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central. And I send the recording the same night. So some people don't attend live, they watch it. But it's best if you can attend live, of course, and we talk about things. And
How are
one
the
week we
meeting
do-
times?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
How are the meeting times for the $99 course? Is it something?
There's
one
no
you and
meetings
I?
for that one. That one's just the course, but it has videos. So there's no tutoring in that one for the $99. There's no
Okay.
tutoring. It's
Okay.
just a course. But it has videos in it, and it has practice questions and everything. If you want the weekly tutoring, I try to get you ready in 4 weeks. Not everybody does that, but you have the option and the ability to, and it's $33 a week. So it's a little bit more expensive because it's $33 a week, and you would ideally try to finish in 4 weeks to keep your costs down. And 1 week we do pedagogy, 1 week we do writing, 1 week speaking, and then the last week, we combine listening and reading. because people usually need less help with listening and reading than they do speaking and writing, in my experience at least. So you can finish in 4 weeks if you want to, but some people stay longer, especially if they're needing to improve their proficiency, and I vary it. So if you stay more than 4 weeks, I'll vary it where we're not doing the same thing every
Okay.
time, you know. The pedagogy is pretty much always the same, to be quite honest, because that doesn't change, but I put in different reading passages, different listening passages.
Or like more
Um,
experience.
Yeah, just different topics really, because it's habit where it's called an evergreen. So you can join any time and finish in 4 weeks. Nothing builds because it's all different topics, right? So
Right.
you join any time and cancel any time. But my goal is to let you be ready in 4 weeks if you're working hard. But a lot of people stay longer because if they're not quite to a C1 level of proficiency, then they need more time. 4 weeks is not enough. 4 weeks is enough if you're already testing at a C1 level of Spanish. And there's a free proficiency test if you don't know what level you are. And there's different ones, but I've taken this one, lingalia.com. And
Oh yeah, I've
you-
done that one actually.
yeah, and you want to be at a C1 or C2 level. When I've taken it, every single time I get a C1, and I don't know why I'm not testing C2, because I bought their whole course, then I did it, and I passed their C2
There are
test.
only 3 levels, I think, right? A, B, and C.
Yeah, well, but
Yeah.
but there's like A1, B1. I mean A1, A2, B1,
Right.
B2. So it's
I-
weird when I take their free one, I passed it with a C1, but when I did their paid course, I passed with a C2, which of course is
Okay.
more in depth. So if you
Okay.
get a C1, you might actually be a C2. That's what I think, at least.
Okay, I actually got a B2, but I
B2?
took myself a little back. I bought it because that's something that you recommended, but there are some things that I wanted to just brush up on my own. So I kind of went back and practiced some things, and then I haven't touched where I actually should have started. I feel like I needed to kind of build certain things, and then I'll like walk myself through. I'm just debating if I should do your course for 99. However, you mentioned it's on my own, and I do need like assistance. So I'm just debating if I should do the 33 a week,
33.
the 99.
Most people like it more. And, you know, it's really comes down to how self-directed you are and how much money you're willing to spend. But I've never really had anybody dissatisfied with either one, honestly. Like people, I get some constructive feedback, but I welcome that. Like, you know, a while back, somebody said, you know, like your course, but it needs more on the 5 C's. So I don't take it personally. I just went and beefed up the 5 C section. So I feel like it's got, you know, all of the pedagogy you need to know. If you're up to level in reading, writing, listening, speaking, you'll be in good shape. And if
Okay.
you're not, you're doing the right thing. That Lingalia course is intense, but it's
Right.
great.
No, it's really good. I like it.
It is. I love it. Yeah. And it keeps it pretty fun. Now, it's not going to help you get better at writing, right? Because nobody's
Right.
checking your writing.
Right.
Nobody's checking your speaking. But to get better at writing, a free way to get better at writing is to just open up a Google Doc and practice writing. And it catches a lot of mistakes for you.
Okay.
So that's free.
The only other
question.
question I have on this spreadsheet, I like how you bolded or highlighted like the differences, even though there's slight differences from level to level and then across the different skills. Is there a way that you can match those up to like according to like a Spanish level 1, a Spanish level 2, a Spanish level 3, and like a full AP? Because
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I do know actually. It's done for us actually. Let me see, and I've got to run in
that would
1
have
minute.
to be kind of hand in hand with skill. So like if you're like a novice low, you would be kind of in a special Spanish 1, but then with the ACTFL, you're really in Spanish 1 until you exit, which you should be at a novice high, I believe. I just want to make sure that
if you go to
visually.
the TEKS, the high school TEKS, it'll actually tell you, like, if we go to level 1.
Where did you go to get that like that?
Sure, I'm going to send the link in the chat box, and unfortunately I've got to go because I have free tutoring for a different subject right now.
Sure.
So I've got to log onto that. But it tells you level 1 should be novice mid to novice high, level 2 novice high to intermediate low. But
That's what I
please,
needed to look at.
give me a call tomorrow. I'm gonna put my number here too,
I will.
or, and so I've got to log off now, but thank you
Okay,
guys
well,
so
thank you.
much.
Brittany,
And
I have one
yes,
Thank you
question
so
quickly.
much.
I have
Yeah.
something quickly. I just recommend her to take your tutoring because you work one by one. So
Oh,
I
thank
just
you.
give it thumbs up. So
Oh,
don't be
thank you.
afraid.
You're
because
saying
Oh,
because
the
working
weekly?
by ourselves is really hard sometimes.
I know.
But if someone is pushing you to do a lot of stuff, it will help you.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
I love it.
appreciate
Thank you
your
guys so much.
Bye.
recommendation.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jesse. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye.